We've all been talking about how shocking Indiana's run was, but calling it shocking or really any other way of describing it doesn't do it justice. This was a season that completely rewrote what we thought was possible in college football. Indiana didn't just surprise people by winning the Big Ten. They kept going and going and going. They walked into the playoff, dominated every stage they were on, and somehow ended the year as national champions. 16 wins, 0 losses, a perfect season. Indiana's first national title ever. On paper, it sounds unbelievable. And when you add in everything we thought we knew about this program, the lack of elite recruits, the history, the expectations, it becomes almost impossible to explain. This wasn't supposed to happen. But beyond the wins and the numbers, this season felt different, special in a way that's hard to quantify. Every game felt like another chapter being written, another moment that didn't quite feel real. It was the kind of run where you kept waiting for the clock to strike midnight, and it never did. I can't even imagine how exciting this run has been for Indiana fans. They've suffered through bad years as much as any fan base, but they've finally been rewarded for their loyalty. This Indiana team has really been a treat for the entire country though. I've lived in the South my whole life, so I have no reason to be a Hoosier fan, but I just can't help but root for this team. I don't think I've ever seen a more likable team in my whole life. They're so easy to cheer for because so many of us see ourselves in them. A bunch of people who were overlooked in life, but they didn't let that beat them. Cignetti had to wait years and years to get his big chance. As he said after the game, he never thought he'd be here. His speech after the game genuinely made me a little emotional. Mendoza was overlooked coming out of high school and went to 17 camps with his mom looking for someone to give him a chance. The national championship was played in Miami, only a few minutes from his home, and against Miami, who showed no interest in him. The coaches and players are also likable that it feels like they were cast for a movie. Everything about the setup for the game even felt like the script for a movie. I don't think you could make a more inspiring and emotional sports story if it was scripted. Beyond all of that, how is it even possible that Indiana is this good? I've been thinking about it for days and I just can't figure it out. They don't have highly recruited players, and yet Indiana never looked like it. I suppose Miami gave Indiana's offensive line some trouble, but that was legitimately the only time where Indiana's players didn't look like the higher caliber athletes. Not just in this game, but pretty much the whole season. Malachi Toney has been a sensational player all season, and he still had a big game, but I don't think I saw any other team tackle him in open space as well as Indiana did. Indiana could run the ball on anyone in the country when it mattered most, and Mendoza could hit Becker with a back shoulder throw every single big moment of the game. They absolutely abused Alabama and Oregon, some of college football's biggest programs with some of the best NIL budgets. And Ohio State, the team that everyone thought was going to repeat, was physically unable to match Indiana too. I can't figure out if Cignetti found a talent goldmine that nobody else saw, if he just got players that won it more than everyone else, or if Cignetti just knows how to bring the best out of his players. I think it's some sort of combination of the three. I've also noticed that some of the best teams the last few years have had a lot of older players. This is a trend that feels reminiscent of the teams like Nebraska in the 90s. Back then, Nebraska put a lot of emphasis into their walk-on program, and those players developed year after year until they were physically dominant as seniors. This was a big piece of some of the best college teams of all time. What Indiana is doing this year, and what Michigan did a few years ago, feels like a modern version of that. Quick timeout. If you're enjoying this video and want more football content like this every week, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. And while you're at it, comment down below where you think this Indiana team ranks among national champions since 2000. And with all that being said, back to the video. The last few Indiana seasons have really changed a lot of people's perspective on what can be done in college football. It's causing coaches at programs like Kentucky to be fired because people now realize that anyone can win it all with the right coach. Unfortunately, there aren't many Cignettis out there. In fact, there may only be the one. But this season has made a question pop into my head. When you see a year like this where so many teams are firing their coaches, you hear tons of fans talking about how there aren't enough good coaches to fill all the jobs. But is that really true? Because everyone wants a guy like Cignetti now, but how many other great coaches are out there that are still waiting for their chance, like Cignetti was not very long ago? I'm really beginning to wonder how many good players and genius coaches are going completely under the radar. One of Indiana's best defensive linemen got hurt in a freak accident after the Big Ten championship game. How many of you even remembered that anyone was out for Indiana? Probably only Indiana fans, because they have enough depth to where there was barely any noticeable difference. All these players that no one else wanted, and yet even their backups can hang with anyone in the country. It took Cignetti only 2 years to accomplish something everyone said couldn't be done in a lifetime. I don't want to overreact since it's only one championship, but this has to make Cignetti one of the greatest college coaches of all time. I genuinely can't decide whether Nick Saban's 7 national titles with Alabama is more impressive than Cignetti's 1. Obviously, in any normal circumstances, I'd say Saban's 7 by a landslide, but winning anything at Indiana was supposed to be impossible. I'm not ready to say it yet, but if Cignetti wins a second title, I might be ready to say he's the best. But it feels like there's a not-so-distant alternate reality where Cignetti never even got a chance or gave up right before the opportunity came to him. This might be the most inspiring part of this whole story and why these guys are so likable. Whatever goals you have, whatever dreams you've been clinging on to despite the odds being against you, they might be right on the verge of coming true. Maybe one more day, one more week, one more year, maybe even 10 years away. But if you stick with it and keep working hard, you might just achieve your goals. Cignetti and Mendoza reminded me of that, and I believe that is the real beauty of sports. And that's why this Indiana season is going to stick with people long after the confetti was swept up. Not because of the record or the trophies or the perfect season, but because of what it represented. For 1 year, the sport slowed down enough to remind us of why we fell in love with the game in the first place. It wasn't about recruiting rankings or blue-chip depth charts. It was a bunch of players who refused to accept the role they were told to play. In a world of NIL and constant transferring, this team felt like the old days where players really legitimately loved their school and wanted to win for their teammates and coaches as much as themselves. Sure, Indiana brought in a bunch of transfers for this season, but it really didn't feel like it with how close-knit of a group they were. Seasons like this don't come around often, and when they do, they tend to expose just how fragile the assumptions we have about college football really are. That certain programs can't win, that certain coaches aren't good enough, that certain players missed their chance. Indiana shattered all of that in the span of a few months. One day this run will be reduced to a line in the record books, but for the people who watched it unfold, it'll always feel bigger than that. Because for a moment, it felt like anything was possible. And that's the kind of story sports are at their best when they tell.